Hey, what's happening, everyone? Welcome to Maych TV. I am Maych. I haven't done one of these in a while, mainly because the opinions haven't been quite as outlandish, but the guys on the 888 Sport YouTube channel have been talking about overrated Premier League footballers, and something they said really got to me.
He used to be more involved though, Harry Kane. He did used to be, but like he feels like his game's changed.
He's so selfish. Everything is about Harry Kane.
Never.
That does my head in.
What do you mean?
He's robbing goals. The man takes phantom goals.
Yeah. Do you ever see him running for the ball? Do you ever see him chase a ball? No, do you, Bob?
No,
never.
I agree. It was a really good shout from Stephen.
Yeah,
Harry
shout.
Kane is completely overrated.
He's such a talented finisher, but I think his overall contribution, it feels very much like a it's like a fancy Darren Bent basically.
I say really got to me. Look, I like Steve. I think he's a good guy, but the notion that Harry Kane is overrated, I think, is a bit mad. To be perfectly honest, they threw out the likes of Harry Maguire, and I think they ultimately came to the notion that Harry Maguire was the most overrated player in the Premier League. And it got me to thinking, how do you quantify such a thing? First off, listen, go over to the 888 Sport YouTube channel, leave your opinions, whether you agree or disagree. What have you, and I'll have a comment there. You can interact with me in that space and all that stuff. But yeah. That's that. There are some interesting points raised by the video, but I kind of wanted to move on the discussion, to be honest. And I want to talk about how we quantify these things. Because in my opinion, the base starting point for this is the fact that, look, ultimately, if you're a football fan, you're not really a football fan, you're a fan of a particular team, first and foremost. So even if you were to watch every televised game of football going, odds are you're going to be watching it through the lens of your own side. Even when you're watching a game that doesn't really matter too much, you will have memories of certain players or certain managers or certain situations, and your basis of understanding will come from having watched your football team first and foremost. I mean, ultimately, when it comes to analysing overrated, we're talking about the biggest players at the biggest clubs, to be perfectly honest, because I couldn't tell you whether there's a Norwich player that's the most overrated player in the Premier League, because let's be honest, I suspect that there isn't, but also, ultimately, I haven't got a clue. Have you got a clue? No, nobody's got a clue. You know, I don't mean to use Norwich to bash them in particular. That in my mind, because Liverpool are playing them this week. Ultimately, the players that you're going to be talking about are, look, what are they? They're antagonists. They're antagonists to your club, to the players of your club, to the things your club are trying to achieve. So I think it always adds a skew. And that 888 Sport video, the Leicester fan brings up Harry Maguire. And of course he's going to bring up Harry Maguire because, look, Leicester City sold him. So he's going to be fresh in his mind. He's tied into the Harry Maguire story. He might very well be right. Harry Maguire might be at £80 million. He might be massively overrated, but overrated by who and in what regard? I understand that that's a reasonable place to start. Go on transfer fees. Look, was Andy Carroll overrated? Probably when Liverpool paid £35 million for him, that Liverpool chose to pay £35 million for a player of that level of ability. Says that, yeah, he was probably very overrated. So that's actually a decent barometer, really, isn't it, in terms of those things? But Harry Maguire, I think, is an interesting discussion because is he an £80 million centre-back? No, but of course, yes, because someone chose to pay for him. You're going to be worth what someone's willing to pay for you. Nothing has a value, really. It's a made-up fantasy figure until someone is literally willing to put down the cash and spend it. And if it's worth 80, Harry Maguire wasn't worth 80 million to Liverpool, and he wasn't worth 80 million to Manchester City, but he's probably worth 80 million to Manchester United because they desperately needed a better centre-half option than what they had. So really, what's 80 million pounds if he solves the problem? I remember people saying this about Virgil van Dijk. What the hell were Liverpool doing paying 75 million pounds for a centre-back from Southampton? But Liverpool desperately needed a centre-back. They didn't just need a centre-back, they needed Virgil van Dijk. So the fee was utterly irrelevant. So I think that's where there's some holes in the debate. He's overrated, he's not worth £80 million in a general footballing sense when you consider what value you could get for that. It's the Andy Carroll argument. £35 million would have bought you Sergio Aguero. Would you rather have Andy Carroll? Or would you rather have Sergio Aguero? Ding, 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 ding. It's Sergio Aguero all day long, isn't it? But Liverpool were in a situation where Fernando Torres was going out the door. Suarez had come in, but Liverpool had that money burning a hole in their pocket. They needed to go and get a solution to a problem. And for Newcastle, will you accept 35 million? Why deal done? It was at the time seen as like, yeah, Liverpool going above and beyond, but that was the value for Liverpool at the time. So it can be a bit of a tricky argument, because my immediate reaction when the question was posed to me, who do you think is the most overrated player in the Premier League? In fact, do this little exercise for me right now. who is the most overrated player in the Premier League today? And let's just ruminate on it for a couple of seconds. I want to, in the comments here, or you can tweet me at the Paul Maych, who is the first player that came to mind? Now, the first player that came to my mind was Paul Pogba. Is it because I don't think he's a good player? No, I think Paul Pogba is an absolutely outstanding footballer. Is he overrated? Probably yes. Now, why do I think that? Because you're talking about a guy, who was in title-winning Juventus sides. He was in Manchester United youth setup. He was very, very highly rated. To go from Manchester United to Juventus says you've got supreme talent. He's won a World Cup with France. He's a fantastic footballer. Fantastic. So how can I possibly say he's overrated? He gets he gets a good goal and assist return for a guy who plays in a variety of midfield positions. He's not one of the front three, but he still gets a good goal return. Still, his goal contributions in an all-round sense are still pretty good. Very good, really, for the centre mid, particularly in a Manchester United side that's not great. So why do I think he's overrated? Because Paul Pogba has crossed over into this category of footballers who transcend their football teams. And there's loads of them. Ronaldo's one of them. Messi's one of them. Mohamed Salah is one of them as well. And when people develop their own fan base, I find that really, really weird. I find that a really, really bizarre subculture of footy, people who follow players, not football teams. And Paul Pogba is one of those players for whom you cannot slag off. You cannot talk about it in negative terms in any way, shape or form, because the Paul Pogba ultras will just destroy you. They're like One Direction fans, basically. Messi fans. My good friend Steve Horn made a comment about taking the piss out of Messi last season and spent weeks and weeks and weeks of being slaughtered by Lionel Messi fans. And my thing about Paul Pogba is, I don't think that I can understand Messi having fans like that. And I can understand Ronaldo having fans like that. And I can understand, the truly elite players on the planet having a culture of just their own individual supporters, because they're pop stars, they transcend. David Beckham had a bit of that as well. They're more akin to Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift than they are to your average Jamie Carragher's and your John Terry's of the footballing world. I think he's very, very good. And I think if you put him with a world-class manager and a world-class team, I think we'd see the absolute best of Pogba. But I think he's overrated in such that there's people who have this mad cult of Pogba. Yeah, I think that's an issue. But then let's flip it around the other way. There's another way of looking at it. And I think you've got this era of banter stats happening, particularly on football Twitter, where, again, it's where we get lost in our own football clubs. We become so myopic in the view of players that we think someone must be the best, ... because, let's be honest, they're the one that we see the most. And the one, I'm going to use another Manchester United example in this one, is Aaron Wan-Bissaka. It was actually a chat with my good friend Chris Pajak. The MXP podcast is coming back very soon, by the way. And he mentioned Wan-Bissaka, and he's one that, a few weeks ago, you have Manchester United fans go, no, look, he's the best right back in the country. He's better than Trent Alexander-Arnold, because look at his tackling stats. Tackling stats? Look at his tackling stats. Since when is that a relevant metric to a modern day fullback? And I get it, I do. It's like saying, it's like shot stopping. People go, well, he's a great shot stopper as a goalkeeper. Great. Being able to save the ball is the most basic of functions of a goalkeeper. You should be good at those things. David De Gea could fall into that category as well. You can take numbers and you can take stats and you can use them to prove a particular point. There was loads of people looking at the Vidic versus Van Dijk stuff as well, trying to go, well, Vidic was brilliant. Look at all these stats that show that he's better. Is Vidic a better centre-half than Virgil van Dijk? No, absolutely not. Did anyone ever say that Vidic was the best player on the planet? Was he ever in the running to be a Ballon d'Or winner? No. Vidic was outstanding, exceptional. But there's levels, so you can use stats to prove anything, and I think we do this a lot. We've done it in Liverpool for years, because you think that the players you've got are better than what they are, because they're what you watch week in, week out, and you've got a natural fondness and affinity for them. So I think we have a tendency to overrate almost across the board all of the football players in our club to a certain extent, which is why it's mad for me as a Liverpool fan this season, because it's probably the first time ever in my lifetime of following the Reds where I can genuinely say Liverpool have got the best in the world. They've got the best goalie in the world. They've got the best centre-half in the world. They've got two of the best wingers in the world. They've arguably got the best DM in the world. They've got the best all-round midfielder in the world. You know what I mean? I might still be being biased. If I'm being really biased, of course, let me know in the comments. But no, I find it fascinating. The one other shout that was in there, which I do totally disagree with, of course, is the Harry Kane stuff. I find that the notion that Harry Kane is overrated is mad. You know, there's a guy who scored 136 goals in 198 Premier League appearances. He's 26 years old. He's not overrated. He's just really, really good. And he had 2 seasons where he's had some injury worries for the first time. Now, that might mean Harry Kane, we've seen all we're going to see from Harry Kane, but you know, there's every chance that if he gets back, he gets fit and maybe gets a fresh move somewhere else, or a full season under Mourinho, for whom he is the perfect Mourinho centre forward. We'll find Harry Kane back to 30 goal a season and right back in the bracket of the best centre forwards in the world, alongside your Lewandowskis and previously your Cavani's and previously the Higuains. You know, your target men lead the team centre forwards. Harry Kane's brilliant. I won't have that. I won't have that as much as the banterist in me and the person doesn't really like Harry Kane, because I think he's a goal claiming, tap-in merchant, etc, 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 diving, blah blah blah. That all comes from me not really liking him as a person. I think he's a fantastic footballer. Let me know yours in the comments below. If you want more from me, I've got a Patreon. We're getting a growing following. I've just done the first Maych Patreon exclusive Q&A, taking your questions every month, doing some behind the scenes stuff as well, and it helps to support the channel. So if you're here and you like this and you want to join up, it does help to support the channel. So go to patreon.com/Maych and become a Maych patron. Nice one, everyone. Ta-ra.